Hi everyone, my name is Olivia Teh. I'm a senior nursing student from the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. I am the presenting author for this project. My co-authors are Karen K. Giuliano, PhD RN, and Julia M. Roncani, DNP APRN. I have been working on this honors thesis research project for almost a year now, and I'm here today to present to you what I've discovered and plan to continue to do. My research project is titled Live Experiences of Nursing Students During a Pandemic. To go over some introduction, ever since the COVID-19 pandemic was declared on March 13th, 2020, it has caused many changes in the ways that schools have functioned over the last 2 years. Although it has been quite some time since the declaration, many people continue to use public health measures for infection control, such as mask wearing and social distancing. Thus, the social isolation that resulted has shown to have profound effects on both the mental health and the learning experience of college students. Concurrent with the WHO pandemic declaration, schools at every level of education found themselves needing to rapidly implement a variety of online learning products to allow for distance learning and safety. Because of the need for practice-based experiential learning, this transition profoundly impacted majors within the medical field, including nursing students. In a cross-sectional study of medical students from 13 medical schools, only 21% agreed that e-learning could be used for many required clinical tasks. In addition, it is also important to recognize that burnout and stress associated with online learning can create a poor learning environment for students. When students complete all their work online, they use the free time they used to have before the pandemic to attend online meetings and complete work, putting the greater risk for developing burnout. Upon doing background research in regards to similar and complementary topics, I was able to discover information that is beneficial to be aware before diving into my own project. When looking at the history of pandemics like the swine flu, Spanish flu, and smallpox, it has been shown that the greatest negative impacts have been on healthcare workers. Healthcare employees were integral on the front lines of the pandemics, placing both their health and the health of their loved ones at risk. Society must provide these workers with the resources needed to keep them in the profession and willing to work during the unprecedented anxiety and stress of working on the front lines during a pandemic. While there have been many studies conducted that look into healthcare workers' willingness to work during a pandemic, there have been very little studies examining the impact of the pandemic had on learning experiences of nursing students. Looking at the rapid transition to remote learning, it required faculty in colleges of nursing to implement a variety of virtual learning tools and strategies that many had never used before. Nursing students were required to continue their education from their homes and on their laptops using platforms like Zoom and Google Hangouts to connect with their peers and course faculty. This transition meant an inability to work in lab simulations or attend clinical experiences in the hospital at the start of the lockdown, as hospitals and schools wanted to minimize the spread of COVID-19. When looking at a study examining the long-term effects of online learning, it was found that one of the biggest reasons for student dissatisfaction was a lack of interaction with their professors and classmates, and the greatest satisfaction was the convenience of being able to do school anywhere where there was Wi-Fi. It has also been learned that recorded lectures was the best remote learning method for nursing students, as they were able to go back and listen to lectures in order to catch information that they may have missed. COVID-19 also produced many negative effects on college students' mental health, resulting in delays in their formal education. It has been shown that public health emergencies can raise feelings of insecurity, confusion, emotional isolation, and stigma that can translate into reactions such as depression, unhealthy behaviors like substance abuse, and noncompliance with health officials. Social isolation has caused increased anxiety in tandem with changes in school dynamics and being withdrawn from social encounters. Many people who had never experienced feelings of depression and anxiety suddenly felt them acutely, negatively impacting their school performance. Before the pandemic, college students were accustomed to balancing academic rigor with social life, as socialization increases a hormone that decreases anxiety levels and makes us feel more confident in our ability to cope with stressors. However, once the pandemic started, campuses closed and students worked remotely in private settings far removed from their colleges and university, thus removing an important outlet for social release and increasing stress and anxiety. Specifically looking at nursing students, they were not allowed in hospitals during the pandemic, leading to struggles working in a real-life setting. Clinical rotations are hands-on experiences to shadow and learn from actual nurses with patients in a real-life setting. This hands-on experiential learning allows nursing students to get a first-hand experience of what it will be like when they eventually enter the profession. However, during the pandemic, many hospitals in the Amherst, Massachusetts area changed their policies for nursing students to minimize the spread of COVID-19. These changes, in turn, forced many nursing students to do part of their clinical rotations through an online platform or in a laboratory setting. Although virtual clinical simulations can provide positive outcomes for learning different clinical scenarios, it cannot provide a real-life learning environment. Understanding how to act in real time with a real person experiencing an actual illness is essential to being a nurse and can only be taught in a clinical setting through an actual clinical experience. It is also important to look at the pandemic's effects on nursing faculty support and experience. Nursing faculty felt ill-equipped to support their students during this unprecedented time, as they could no longer use face-to-face methods to teach and connect with their students. Nursing school faculty were not only concerned with their well-being, but also the well-being of their students, as many students were also continuing to work in hospitals while attending online classes. Understanding the impact of the pandemic had on faculty can aid in the overall understanding of the education that nursing students were receiving. Finally, I thought it was useful to look into what positive strategies some nursing schools use in order to engage their students' learning. The Fitzpatrick College of Nursing at Villanova University came up with an action plan for ensuring that their students still receive top-notch education in the midst of a pandemic. Some of their interventions included providing students what they needed at home to complete online courses by supplying supplies like laptops, transitioning to more advanced simulation programs like vSim, and switching to satisfactory and unsatisfactory grading systems to reduce student stress. Even though there were many negative consequences to schooling during the pandemic, it still allowed many schools to rise to the occasion and support students in ways they had never been supported before. My study will add to the existing body of knowledge by increasing the understanding of the impacts that the COVID-19 pandemic had on undergraduate nursing students based on remote learning experiences. It will give insight into how undergraduate nursing students felt supported throughout the pandemic and provide essential information on the kinds of support that nursing students will need when entering the profession post-graduation. The purpose of this study is to understand how undergraduate nursing students at the University of Massachusetts Amherst perceive their learning experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic by looking at two different cohorts of students. Looking at two cohorts of students will allow us to evaluate the student perceptions of the impact of the pandemic on their nursing school education at two different points in the pandemic. I was able to come up with 3 aims that I hope to accomplish by the end of this research study. The first aim is to measure the impact of the pandemic on undergraduate nursing students' perceptions of the quality of their educational experience. From this aim, I hypothesize that the pandemic will have a negative impact on nursing students' perception of the quality of their educational experience. My second aim is to measure the impact of the pandemic on undergraduate nursing students' perceptions of the safety of their clinical experience. From this aim, I hypothesize that the pandemic will have a negative impact on nursing students' perceptions of the safety of their clinical experiences. And my third aim is to compare these experiences across 2 cohorts of undergraduate nursing students from fall 2020 and fall 2021. From this aim, I hypothesize that there will be positive differences in educational experiences during the pandemic between these 2 cohorts of students. For my participants, I used 2 different cohorts of nursing students. The first one is the undergraduate nursing class graduating in 2022 during their N420 nursing research course taken in their junior year. The second cohort of students is the undergraduate nursing class graduating in 2023 during their N420 nursing research course taken in their junior year. And just to go a little bit over the methods that I'll be using to analyze my data, so this study will be a quantitative survey design. And to conduct this research, I will use the survey data collected from the undergraduate nursing classes graduating in 2022 and 2023 during their N420 nursing research course taken in their junior year. Combined, there are 81 total student participants, 49 from the N420 course in the fall of 2020 and 32 from the N420 course in the fall of 2021. Data were collected online using a quadric survey in which a multi-site team developed the 10 items online survey created and administered to students for voluntary participation using a link in Blackboard. The questions in the survey asked about how students felt about the support they received from the Lane Merritt College of Nursing, as well as their comfort level to work in the clinical setting after the education they received. They were then asked to rate each statement using a sliding scale option that went from strongly disagree to neutral to agree to strongly agree. For my analysis, I will be using SPSS 28. And for my first 2 aims, I'll be using a descriptive statistical test. For my third aim, I'll be using a chi-squared test that will be used to see if there's any statistically significant differences between the 2020 and the 2021 cohorts. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me.